Welcome to AI Book Highlights.
Great to be here.
Today we're looking at David Bodanis' Electric Universe, the shocking true story of electricity.
It's a fantastic read. Really opens your eyes.
Absolutely. The book basically dives into the hidden power of electricity, how fundamental it is, everywhere, from stars down to us.
And the stories behind the people who figured it all out.
Exactly. It reveals how this invisible force, which has been around for, over 13 billion years?
That's the number Bodanis uses, yeah.
How it shaped everything. Modern life, our technology, even our own bodies. Stuff we totally take for granted.
We really do. So let's unpack some of that.
Okay, first highlight, the hidden nature of it all.
Right, the sheer power that's hidden in plain sight. Like you said, 13 billion years it's been operating.
But we don't see it most of the time.
No, because the positive and negative charges in, well, everything, are usually perfectly balanced.
Bodanis has had that great analogy.
With arm wrestlers.
Yeah. Two super strong arm wrestlers straining against each other, but their hands barely move, so you don't notice the huge struggle.
It's a perfect way to picture it. And the book really stresses the consequences if that balance failed.
Oh, yeah. It's terrifying, actually. Oceans boiling away.
DNA itself shredding apart.
And society just collapsing. No banks, no phones, no food storage, no trains, nothing.
It puts our dependence in stark relief. Before we figured it out, though, humans only really saw electricity in, like, lightning.
Or static shocks, maybe.
Yeah.
Fleeting things.
Exactly. Mysterious flashes, not this fundamental, constant force.
Okay, so moving forward a bit, highlight 2. The Telegraph. This really kicked off the connected world.
It really did. And Samuel Morse, the inventor. Bodanis points out he had some, let's say, interesting beliefs.
A bit out there, invisible forces, conspiracies.
Yeah, that kind of thing seems to have been part of his motivation alongside the more practical aspects.
But regardless of his personal views, the invention itself, massive impact.
Huge, though it wasn't instant. Took a little while to catch on.
But then it just exploded, right? Financially, too.
Oh, definitely. Suddenly you could send financial news instantly across huge distances.
Link up offices, coordinate train networks. It's a big one.
Absolutely. It forced a kind of synchronization. Before the telegraph, time was local. Noon was when the sun was highest here.
Right. Different from town to town.
A telegraph demanded standardized, clocked time. It was, in a way, the start of globalization.
And, as the book notes, it gave governments a new tool, a way to manage things much more centrally.
A more controlled society in some ways. It changed how we perceived time itself.
Wild how a wire-carrying clicks could do all that.
It laid the groundwork for, well, everything that came next.
Which brings us nicely to highlight 3, the telephone, and a surprisingly romantic origin story.
Yes, Alexander Graham Bell. His main drive wasn't just inventing, it was his love for Mabel Hubbard, who was deaf.
He wanted to connect with her more directly than the telegraph allowed.
Exactly. See, the telegraph just sent clicks. On, off. Binary, basically.
Bell had this revolutionary idea. What if he could send the whole sound, the nuances of a voice?
Which was a huge leap conceptually, and his personal life really fed into this. His mother was also hard of hearing.
So he had this deep personal understanding of the challenges.
Right. And the breakthrough. It involved figuring out how to turn the vibrations of speech
Into electrical signals, using things like parchment and wire.
Yeah, he found that the sound waves, the pressure from his voice, could make a wire vary its electrical resistance.
So the electricity mirrored the sound wave.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
Encoding the sound electrically. It's just a powerful reminder that innovation isn't always about profit motive. Sometimes it's deeply personal.
Love and invention. Okay, highlight 4 takes us into the invisible. Wireless communication.
This is where we meet Michael Faraday. He started thinking about electricity differently, not just as a fluid in a wire.
But as creating invisible fields, force fields around magnets and wire.
Exactly, a really radical idea for the time. People thought of empty space as just empty.
And then James Clerk Maxwell came along.
Right. Maxwell took Faraday's ideas and described them mathematically. These electromagnetic fields he showed had linked electric and magnetic parts. Waves.
Oh, it was still theory at that point. Very elegant theory. But
For theory nonetheless. Until Heinrich Hertz...
Hertz did the experiments.
He did. Clever experiments that actually generated and detected these invisible electromagnetic waves in his lab, proving Maxwell right.
And suddenly, this abstract physics had world-changing potential.
Immense potential. Bodanis mentions even super early primitive mobile phones being tried way back in 1879.
Wow, that early.
Based on these principles, yeah. And of course, it directly led to radio, television, radar,
Uh,
all built on understanding these invisible waves.
from Faraday's fields to Maxwell's math to Hertz's sparks.
To the wireless world we live in now, it's quite a chain of discovery.
Okay, finally, highlight 5. This one's maybe the most surprising. Electricity inside us. The electric human.
It's mind-blowing when you first properly grasp it. Our entire nervous system, our brains, it all runs on electricity.
Nerve signals aren't just chemical.
They are electrical currents, fundamentally. Traveling down these tiny insulated tunnels are nerve fibers.
Like tiny biological wires.
In a way, yes. And the gaps between them, the synapses, that's where chemicals come in. Neurotransmitter,
Bodanis calls them ponderous floating molecules.
which is a great description. They float across the gap to trigger the next electrical signal.
And the signals themselves rely on ions. Sodium, potassium.
Exactly. Those charged atoms moving in and out of the nerve cells maintain the electrical pulse, keep the signal strong over distances.
So when we think about, say, anesthetics.
Or drugs like Prozac.
Yeah.
They're interacting with this electrical system. Bodanis calls it liquid technology.
Modifying our internal electrical landscape. That's incredible.
Even memory, he suggests, might be stored in the patterns of these tiny electrical whirls and pulls within our brain cells.
So we're fundamentally electrical beings.
In a very real sense, yes.
Okay, wow. That's a lot to take in from Electric Universe. Let's try and distill some actionable takeaways from all this.
Sounds good. For me, the first big one is just appreciation.
Appreciation for the invisible stuff.
Yeah. Recognizing this vast electrical infrastructure that everything in modern life depends on, and realizing how fragile it potentially is.
We just flick a switch and expect it to work. We don't think about the balance forces, the power grid.
Exactly. So, takeaway 1,
Yep,
appreciate the hidden power, and maybe consider its fragility.
good one. Okay, takeaway 2. For me, it comes back to Bell.
The personal motivation.
Yeah. Look for inspiration beyond the obvious, beyond just the market or the tech problem itself. Bell's drive came from love, from a desire to connect.
It's a great point. Sometimes the biggest breakthroughs come from tackling a deeply personal challenge or passion.
So, takeaway 2. Personal motivation can be a powerful engine for innovation. Don't discount it.
Agreed. And the third takeaway?
I think it has to be about how science builds on itself. The interconnectedness,
You mean like Faraday's ideas, which were maybe a bit abstract?
leading to Maxwell's equations, then Hertz proving them, and then radio and everything else.
Right. Progress isn't usually one lone genius having a single eureka moment in isolation. It's cumulative.
People building on earlier work, even if that earlier work seemed purely theoretical or wasn't immediately understood.
So, takeaway 3. Appreciate that scientific and technological progress is often a team sport played across generations.
Building blocks.
Oh,
Okay, those are 3 really solid takeaways.
it's a book that definitely makes you think.
It really does. Well, that about wraps up our look at David Bodanis's Electric Universe, an absolutely fascinating journey.
We really hope you, our listener, found this interesting and maybe feel inspired to pick up the book yourself. There's so much more detail in there.
For sure. If you want to dive deeper, you can find a link to purchase Electric Universe, the shocking true story of electricity, right there in the description.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks for joining us on AI Book Highlights.